the one thing that I want to point out here is that if we go to package.json, you'll notice here that I've modified the start scripts. So I have start that's running npm run serve all. And what this is doing is using concurrently, it's calling run serve API and run serve web. Well, serve web is a pretty basic Angular command. So I'm just saying ng serve, and I'm putting this on port 4300, and I am saying go ahead and auto open the app. So this is where when I run this, it just opens it up in a browser tab. Over here, serve API, we're using JSON server, and we're pointing it to this db.json file inside of the server folder. And what's really cool about JSON server is that it takes a JSON file and it converts it into a fully featured REST API. So I'm going to just generate one more. I'm going to convert this to a string as well, and then I'm going to restart this, and everybody will see what I am talking about. So title, component-driven architecture. There we go. I'm going to save this. Let's go back into our command line, and I'm just going to shut this down, and we're going to start it up again. We can see that it's running, and so if we go into our, there we go, it's on. So I'm going to go to localhost 3000, and you'll see here, you have this landing page, but if I go to courses, you can see that this is what's in the JSON structure here that we had in db.json. But if I go back, you can see that it also has lessons. So as fast as it took me to type it is how long it took me to expose a local REST API. So now, with that said, let's go into our service here, and let's go to our courses service, and let's build this out. So let me make sure that in my app module, I have HTTP client module. That's good. So first thing, so I don't get burnt like I did last time. And from here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a constant called base URL, and this is going to be localhost 3000, if I'm not mistaken. Hopefully that's correct. And I'm just going to create a local property called model, and this is going to be courses, and we'll see this come into play in just a moment. And I'm going to create a method, and this one is going to be private, and it's going to be called get URL. And all this is going to do is return a string of base URL / this dot model. All right. And so now I'm going to create a method called all, and it's going to return this dot, well, what do we do here? Where is the service? So if I go up top, we need to inject it. So we'll go constructor private. We'll just go HTTP, and there we go. Let me just make sure that I am importing this correctly. Very good. And now that I've injected the service, we're going to go this HTTP get, and you'll see here that it takes a URL and a bunch of optional stuff. And so get, and then from here we can just go this dot get URL. All right. And now let's see what happens. So in theory, this should work. So let's go into our courses component here. And what we're going to do, I'm going to do something that is a transition step initially, is we're going to go and we're going to go this courses service, all subscribe result equals result. All right, I'm going to just type this to any for just a second. There we go. Let me save this and let's see what happens. 404 not found. So you can see here that the reason why this is not working is I believe I've misconstrued my get URL function here. So we'll go back, we'll troubleshoot this real quick, and let me get rid of this. So I think I had one too many forward slashes. There we go. All right. So if we refresh this, you'll see that in the network that I'm calling the localhost 3000 / courses, and I am returning this to be rendered inside of the component here. Now what we can do is, and I'm going to delete this, is I'm going to build out the other, well, let's say 1, 2, 3, just a few more methods rather to do full CRUD. And so I'm going to make one more additional convenience method, which is going to be get URL with ID, and it's going to take an ID, and it's just going to return this .get URL. So this is just kind of a wrapper function, and you'll see why this is important in just a moment. We'll go here, and so if you wanted to find, or rather get a single item in the collection, so what I can do here, let me just go back to localhost 3000 courses, is you'll see here that if I wanted to get just this one, that I can put the ID in and it returns just that single course. And so this is where being able to generate a URL that also has the ID is relevant when you are dealing with a specific item and not the collection at large. So get URL with ID, we'll just pass this through, and there we go. So 3 more methods that we can create real quick. Create is going to be return this .http post and this get URL because we're dealing with the collection, and we're going to pass in the course. Now what I like about this is you'll notice that I am creating these methods that are communicating with the server, but this is all they're doing. That it's very, very thin, and ideally you have a layer that communicates with the server and handles that piece, and then another layer that is responsible for managing state. So here we'll go HTTP put, and in this case it'll be get URL with ID. And this will take the course ID because we're dealing with a single item in the collection. And then what we'll do is we'll do delete as well. So in this case, this will just take an ID, return this .http, delete, and this .get URL with ID, and it's going to just take in the ID. All right. So this is full CRUD in this service. And what I want to just call out before we go any further is that this code is very, very similar. It's very, very fine-grained. And what we are delineating on is just the verbs that we're using and how we're constructing the URL and the payload. But every one of these methods is a single line of code. And so this, when you're writing code, this is what I consider to be, kind of, I don't want to say the gold standard or the holy grail, but this code is very, very easy to test and to reuse and to extend and generate. So with that said, let me do one more example. We're going to do save course. The question is, are we dealing with an existing course or a brand new course? And so this is where I use a simple kind of I think of it as kind of an upsert, but I'm basically saying if it has a course ID, in other words, if it exists and it's not null, then what we're going to do is we are going to update the course. And if it doesn't, then we're going to create the course. So if it has one, then we're just going to call this update course. We're going to pass it in. If not, then we're going to call create course and pass it in. So all we're doing is, because it does something slightly different, we are creating a method to separate the two, and then we'll go courses service. In this case, update. We'll pass in the course, and I will subscribe here as well. We'll go result. And what I want to do when this happens is I want to essentially, for this case, for simplicity's sake, I just want to get all of the courses. So we'll just go fetch courses. And you'll notice here that I'm already doing all of this up in the ng on init. So remember when I said that ng on init really should be used to just delegate out. This is a perfect example of that. I don't need to do this logic in here. I can just the one thing that I want to point out here is that if we go to package.json, if it has a course ID and it does something slightly different, we are creating a method to separate the two, and then we'll go courses service, in this case update, we'll pass in the course, and I will subscribe here as well. We'll go result. And what I want to do when this happens is I want to essentially, for this case, for simplicity's sake, I just want to get all of the courses. So we'll just go fetch courses. And you'll notice here that I'm already doing all of this up in the ng on init. So remember when I said that ng on init really should be used to just delegate out. This is a perfect example of that. I don't need to do this logic in here. I can just call a method that does that on our behalf. So now when this completes, all I want to do is I just want to rehydrate the courses. So I'll go here like this, and we'll save this here. The difference is I think I had create in update, so now this should be correct. Create course, create, update course, update. So let me go ahead and save this, and let's see if this works. So we'll go here. And actually, let me go back here just so we can keep a record of the API. And we'll go new course. Super awesome, y'all. Holler. And definitely a favorite. Let me save this. I'm in shock. I can't believe it. Let me refresh this. Celebrate good times, come on. All right. How cool was that? I mean, there is a sword hanging from the ceiling that I need to hurry up and get this finished. And I whipped out a sweet service to interact with the REST API in about, let's do some math here. Hold on. Just wait. Less than 50 lines of code. And I feel like if I deleted some of this stuff, that I could probably get it down to like 40. Ugh, I'm so close. Yeah, I don't really, this is where I started doing funny stuff to make it fit. So anyways, you'll notice here that incredibly conventional, incredibly concise, compact, and then within our component, we are able to then just call out to our service and make that work. Now, because we're not using NGRX, we are doing a few little kind of transition concession steps to rehydrate the course on our behalf. But technically, or typically, what I do is that when I am mutating something at the database or the data layer, I will go ahead and once I've done that, I will just call and refresh that data structure. So I have the latest. So a big issue when you're dealing with full stack applications is when your front end becomes stale because there's newer data on the server, and how do you reconcile that? So unless there's a good reason why, if I do a mutation at the data layer, I just will go ahead and rehydrate that collection from the server.